Throw some colors on the screen and paint me black and white. I wanna see a thief in a gunfight or a heroine wounded in love. You can keep her lighted by an old flame left to frame, so I can read the feeling on her face, half in shadow, and know I felt that too. In danger and in love, you've got the dreams I was dreaming of. I've got 2 hours to pretend, so I'll watch a movie with a friend. Time's running sideways, and reality's gotta meet me halfway, so I'll meet it here again. Here's the Trading Movies podcast with friends.
Hello everyone, welcome to Trade Movies. Today I'm here with Monica Lawrence, who is a documentary filmmaker, writer, director, Native American Zuni tribe member, former professional belly dancer, and she was the first woman to lead 114 VESPA scooters in a rally. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you, so glad to be here.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about that. So you were the first woman to lead 114 VESPA scooters in a rally. That piqued my interest. How did that come about? What was that for?
Well, it was my hometown rally, which was in Orange County. It's called the Orange Crush. The men that were leading the rally had really highly tuned scooters, so they were very fast. So normally the club that leads the rally leads everybody nicely and everybody can stay together, and they would leave everybody in the dust, which I found particularly rude. Being that it's male-dominated, they didn't want to hear me complain. So instead, I went to their meetings for their club for a year. And then when it came time to decide who was going to lead the ride, on Sunday, I raised my hand and I was able to do it. I got complaints in real time. I was criticized while I was doing it. It was not easy. It was being filmed, so I couldn't cry. But I did it. I got everybody together. I went all through Orange County, got everybody back safe. And there's this one beautiful moment right at the corner of Jamboree and PCH in Orange County and Newport Beach. And all of the scooters were lined up behind me in 2 beautiful rows. The sun was shining. It was glistening. Everybody looked gorgeous. And I just remember, oh, I did it. I actually got that done. And so I won their respect. And yeah, nobody's ever attempted it again.
That's awesome. Was it is it like just like a thing for like riding scooters, or was it for a cause, or just like a...
No, it's for Vespa and Lambretta scooters. And so each city has rallies. A lot of it, people are getting to age out of it. A lot of us are now in our 50s, so we're not doing it as much. And some of the younger people aren't wanting to do it, so I don't know how much of that is really going on. But yeah, so that was my moment.
That's cool. I didn't know. Are there a lot of... So you said you're from Orange County. I when I lived in New York City for a few years, I was like, I should get a Vespa. But are there like a lot in like other cities as well?
All throughout the country. All throughout the country. Cool. We used to do a rally in Tucson and ride all the way to Nogales and then go camping and then come back.
Oh, wow.
And then there's ones in Seattle. There's tons in Portland. I've been to rallies up in Victoria, in Canada, and the island. And of course, they still go on in mass in England. And the Isle of Wight rally is huge. Huge rally.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So you're from Orange County. I don't... we were talking a little bit before the pod. I don't think I told you. I used to have to go to Orange County for work every 6 weeks for years, like probably 4 or 5 years, just in my day job. And I had to stay at the Irvine Spectrum, the Doubletree Irvine Spectrum, every 6 weeks for like a whole... my home away from home for like 4 or 5 years, which is fun because it was near the Spectrum.
Yeah, I hope you ventured out beyond that because there's a lot of fun stuff.
I didn't, just be honest with you, I like, because of the job I was doing, and like I didn't have a car, and like I just honestly I would walk, or just like someone would pick me up. It's like it was right close to the office, like where near Blizzard is and all those like companies.
I
but
call
I
that
didn't.
I call
Go
that
ahead,
the
sorry.
Valley of the Big White Buildings.
Yeah, I was in Irvine. I kind of wish I would have gotten, because Irvine's kind of a creepy place, I thought, a little bit. So did you
It's
grow up in Irvine or outside of Orange County?
no. I grew up in
Or I'm
Orange
sorry,
County.
in other part of Orange County, I mean.
Yes, I've been a Fullertonian for a long time. So that's
Okay.
North Orange County. Irvine was built by the Irvine Company, by the family, to be centered around transportation. And so that's why the roads are so big and it's really very spacious. So you should be bicycling or in a car in Irvine. But yeah, it does have a very cold, kind of sanitized feel to it. And
It's a little
that's
too
why I like,
perfect everywhere.
yeah, that's why I like
Yeah.
Fullerton, because it has a lot of heart. There's a good artist community. We all get together at the beer garden in the museum, Fullerton Museum, and it's a lot more chill.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have gone exploring more. A couple times I did actually. I think you mentioned about Long Beach. I went up to Long Beach because I had a couple coworkers that lived up there. That was pretty neat. Neat place to sort of walk around and just kind of hang out. But yeah, not too much in Irvine. That's
No.
so that's cool. So you're a documentary filmmaker and you have a new documentary out called American Haute Couture, I want to say. Is that did I get the right America Haute
Couture.
Couture?
Haute
Haute Couture.
Couture.
See, I told you I was going to mispronounce stuff. Yeah. Haute Couture. Yeah, Haute Couture. Haute Couture. And what's the documentary? What's it about?
Well, really, it's a study on the fact that we, as United States, as a nation, we do not have a national dress. Other countries do. So I was using the example of the ribbon skirts that us Native Americans use, because the ribbons were brought from France to the Americas because they had a surplus of ribbon. And that style of ribbon applique was going out of fashion. So they traded with us natives for furs, and it was good trade. And so since it marries the Europe with North America, it could possibly be a good candidate for a national dress with like maybe a modest top. And maybe men
Oh,
wear
that's
that.
interesting.
Because it's not ancient like buckskin or other dresses or other clothing regalia that we use. So I thought it might be a possible candidate. And also that if anything like that is made, it has to be made by Native Americans, cannot be made out of the country. So if you want to buy American, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, which I'm sure that'd be great. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that was always my favorite part. You know, this for all of my foreign listeners, it was kind of shows you, like, I don't want to. Well, I'm starting like 10 different sentences, but like when I was a kid, I always loved reading about the other cultures and their national dress. I remember like when I was like, probably in elementary school, it'd be like, oh, the Germans, it's a lederhosen, and then like, I can't remember what like the Swedish and Norwegians and French and like, or Vietnamese or anybody like had as sort of their national dress. But me, I was like, I remember being very confused when I got a little bit older, and I was like, okay, a lot of them just wear jeans and like t-shirts, like they look like they dress like Americans. And I was like, I thought everyone dressed in like lederhosen in Germany. I was like, no, that's just like the the thing in the. But yeah, I never thought about. I guess America doesn't have one.
Yeah,
which is
we do,
interesting.
and we do wear jeans and cowboy hats a bit, and things for festivals, but we really don't have anything cohesive to show that we're Americans. And so, it's a thought. I don't know if it would actually happen, but those skirts are available online. People do make them. Anybody can buy them. I thought it'd be nice because with like you say, other countries, when it's like their national holiday, they will tend to wear traditional dress. And I thought, well, that would be interesting. That would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably, I wonder, like as a Native American, it's probably, I would imagine, maybe a bit challenging because it's so like, I feel like a lot of, and I don't know if this is like foreign, but even Americans, I don't know if this is foreign folks or Americans as well. I feel like there's an idea of like a lot of Native Americans are like, okay, there's like East Coast Native Americans and West Coast Native, or it's like if there is like a grouping, that generally it's like only a very limited grouping. But I was fortunate to have like a couple friends, especially in college, that were Native American from different parts of the country. One of them was Hopi, I believe. I'm sorry, he was Tewa, and then which I think is also, I believe, in the Southwest, and I think he went to Arizona. I think he was like half Tewa. So I guess like in terms of thinking about this, was like the ribbon dress, was it like sort of unifying? Is that one of the reasons like it might be unifying across like many different sort of Native American tribes? Or because I'm curious about like the difference in like Seminole versus like Zuni, or obviously those are like two completely like opposite ends of the country, right, in terms of dress and climate and everything else.
Well, with the ribbon skirt, it was first seen in the Great Lakes area, because they went up the Mississippi to the Great Lakes and were trading with the Menominee, they are part of the Algonquin language group. So it did start there, and then it did go to other nations. It went to the Lakota, Sioux, the others in the Great Plains. So many nations have used the ribbon skirt besides just the Menominee. So that's why I thought since it is kind of expansive, it has gone to different nations, because we all consider ourselves our own nation. Then it could go to the United States as a nation. It could be, something that could be, drawn out that way. I was thinking like maybe like if you did on 4th of July, a patriotic, maybe calico behind it, and then did the ribbons on top of it, red, white, and blue, obviously, that kind of thing. It would be kind of and like maybe a navy blue top. Could that possibly be a dress for Americans rather than just natives? That kind of thing. So, again, I don't know if it'll
bringing
actually
the
happen.
different nations together, like USA, and then
Because again, we're so stylized. Other things like my national dress, as my regalia as Zuni, is black wool, and it's a manta, and it's basically a sack, and then we put a sash around it and even up the hem. But that's very specific to us, and just as our language is very specific to us. But since this has crossed different tribes, it's a little. I feel like it's a little bit more inclusive and not strictly one nation. Jingle skirts, I've kind of gone through different nations as well, but that's really hard to wear. You can't sit down in them. And they're only about 100 years old. That style is only about 100 years old. They came about during the pandemic with the Spanish flu in right after the First World War and stuff. So they were supposed to be a healing dress. So the girl that first wore them was dancing, and it healed her of this Spanish flu. So the dress became a healing symbol. And so when you wear it and you add to the percussion with the jingle, it's like healing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So very different.
That's cool. Yeah. The I remember does the Zuni Nation like have a do you all do like a dance? That was one of the fascinating things I remember learning from my Tewa friend, is that he was like practiced every summer for like a traditional dance. Like, is that common among different nations, like to have like
yes. Yes, and powwow season, when people go and do their dances, they at the powwows a lot of time are in competition. They can get prize money, and that can help them augment their income for the year. So that's a big deal. And yes, we have certain dances. For us Zunis, we have a dance with a big water jug on our head. That's like a very traditional dance. We're actually a matriarchal tribe, so us women rule. So we kind of set the standards, whereas other nationalities, other tribes are patriarchal. And then that's where you see the men with the bustles and the feathers and these warrior dances, because they get to dance out like really big and have these great dances. And the women in those tribes, their dances are more subdued. So since we're matriarchal, we get to do it up.
That's very cool. That's really, really cool. What was I going to say? So you picked, for the movie you picked, you wanted to watch Auntie Mame. So
Yes.
Yeah. So what? How do you like? Yeah. How did you? Is this just one of your favorite movies? What was the reason for wanting to watch this?
Auntie Mame is my style guru. She is so cool. And also, she is not a bigot. She hates bigotry. And at a time when that was the norm, she was very accepting, had great savoir-faire. She thought it to be cultured to know about other cultures and not just her own. And so in the even the opening sequence, you'll see the crowd is very diverse. And that's sort of her hallmark. And so I've actually, because I did belly dancing and did other performing, I've built costumes around some of her looks. So
cool.
she really has been my style guru.
That's awesome. Yeah, the I watched this rewatched it last night, and it was fascinating. I thought the first of all, it's very long. This is a long movie, especially for like for I guess like a comedy. Like I don't know that I've ever seen like a straight like 2.5 hour comedy. And it was such an interestingly structured movie, I thought, in terms of like it's almost like you're just watching a series of vignettes almost or something from her life as she's meeting different people, as she's like there's not a ton of through line through the story except like she is just kind of, as you said, like meeting different people, sort of like going on adventures. Like that's kind of the plot, is just like let's just watch Mame go on adventures, it seems like, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah. Well, the book was written by her nephew, Patrick Dennis. He actually did write the book. There's a lot more exposition in that, but this was based on the play. And the play was just her running up down those stairs and wearing gorgeous outfits and having that spotlight. So they really tried to copy that for the film.
So it was like very fashion first, like of
yes.
That's cool. That's very cool. So when's the first time you watched this movie?
I was 14.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was starting to read Vogue magazine quite a bit as well. And so
Gotcha.
looking at fashion and then seeing her style, which was supposed to be in the 30s and 40s, but was still so very modern. And you could copy a lot of the looks even at that time for me, in the 1980s. And so, and she also has a scene where she comes in and she's carrying a Louis Vuitton train case. And that's still, popular today. It's that same brown and beige design. So I'm like, oh, she was old school, liking that. So, and then she, like I say, but her as a character, she's kind of a party girl. She's not really an intellectual, but again, she's not bigoted. And she really showcases that. And she's very loving, even in her kooky little way. And she wanted to impart to her nephew a sense of adventure, a sense of curiosity about the world, and always acceptance.
Yeah. I noticed that at the end. That really comes into focus at the end as her nephew is deciding to, or is like he's bringing his fiance home, and she deliberately kind of tanks the engagement, right, by showing all of her sort of zany friends, and then I think the thing that finally does it is she says she's going to donate a certain, I think like the royalties of her book or something to, I think it's like the Epstein House for Wayward Jewish Children or something like that.
Yes.
And then, which just totally freaks out her, I don't know, it would be her nephew's in-laws.
The potential in-laws. Yes. When they say that when the daughter, the fiance and the parents talk about being restricted, their area was restricted, that meant whites only. And so she was going to put a Jewish household right next to the borderline of a whites only neighborhood. So that's why it was so shocking. And when she says, I'll take a blood test, she meant like we didn't have DNA testing then, but she meant like saying a blue blood test, like saying that she was pure white. That she was going to take a blood test to go into their neighborhood to show that she was purely Caucasian. So
it's crazy.
So that's what she meant by that. And she thought that was so ugly of them. And she's
Yeah.
like, ugh. And so, as you said, reminding him of who he came from with these zany friends of hers, took him down a notch. And, then he realized how bigoted his potential fiance was going to be and what their life was going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. One thing I talk with, excuse me, I talk, well, like, a lot with, I don't know if I've talked about this on the channel, but, I talk with my friends certainly a lot. And one thing that when we're watching, like, not watching movies, but like just talking about the news or anything else, like, we look at like a lot of very rich people and who are like still continuing to get money or something like that. And one thing that's never made sense to me is like why they live their life like this. Like if these people who have like $10 billion, they want to make the next, they're more concerned about making the next $10 billion than like I'm concerned about making my first million or so, it's like, or that my next like $10,000 or something. Like it seems like as they get richer, it's almost like the drive for getting more money, almost to just have more money, is so prevalent in them. What I thought was interesting is like Mame is rich and she struggles when she like loses everything in the stock market crash and everything else. But it's almost like it's kind of like pitching an idea of like, you can be rich, but you have to be interesting. Like, it's like you have to like be interesting and not bigoted, right? It's like, I thought it was fascinating that both at the ending when she's getting mad at the in-laws and also when she meets her southern husband's family, she's also not too thrilled with them because they're also just sort of pretty boring and just only focused about money and like very insular. Definitely no minorities in like a southern Georgia plantation for sure. So yeah, I thought that was sort of a fascinating message to have in a movie that like, it's like she's like the only understandable rich person that I think I've probably ever seen, because it's like she's just spending all of her money going on trips and meeting people and meeting interesting people, right? Like, as opposed to like real rich people who, by and large, I mean, some of them do interesting things, like artists who make a lot of money, but a lot of them just seem to be like, well, let me just, invest in a new biotech company. It's like, that's not like boring.
It's very, so that's one of the things that Auntie Mame wanted to bring in to the fore is, let's have some culture. Let's learn about other people. In the opening scene, you can see two women who are dressed in kind of men's suit, but like a 1930s kind of look. And so they're obviously lesbian. And so she's very accepting. And there's a person playing piano upside down and all these things, because she wanted to, yes, we have money, but let's, she traveled around the world with her husband and wanted to, he was always up on the top shooting downwards, which, as we know, ended up being fatal mistake.
I love that that recurring joke in the movie where they said, that was probably my favorite joke in the whole movie, where he kept, well, let me just get up on this ladder.
Yeah, just a little higher. You always wanted that downward angle in his photography. But yeah, she wanted to be more, have more savoir-faire, have more esprit de corps. She really wanted to use her money to expand her mind and her lifestyle, rather than, like you say, just buying another company, just having more money. But that theme of wealth and things, that's so very American. And the other family, her potential in-laws, when the girl kept saying, oh, we have a place in Fort Lauderdale, that kind of new money bragging about her property was very distasteful to Auntie Mame as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, and I think like the way, excuse me, again, that the fiance tried to sort of compete with the story. Like, they're talking about all the interesting things Auntie Mame has done, is doing everything. And the lady tells the most boring story, like the fiance ever, about like, well, I accidentally stepped on a ping pong ball. And it's like, yeah.
And if you haven't seen this film, you won't get that joke, because they do that joke in Trading Places in the 80s. And
really? I didn't know.
And when Dan Aykroyd's character goes back to his country club, it's that same type of preppy Caucasian, waspy people. And one of the girls says, "And I stepped on a ping pong ball." And they all giggle because they're saying that those people never change. And they're always like that. And they're always a little boring. And, they're going to be telling these awful stories that go nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of it was always like in my day job, I have worked in the tech industry in a number of years, and it's very, very painful a lot of the times meeting very, very rich people, because these people have, and this isn't everyone in the tech industry, but it's way more than it should be. I don't want to give a number because I still need to have a day job, but like the amount of just sort of boring stuff like that, where it's just like they have nothing aside from work and no interest in like other people or other cultures, and it's just very conformist. It's like, it's like they all want to like go on runs, and like it's like the most hobbies they have is like, I like to go running 3 miles a day every morning, and like that's my escape or whatever. And it's like, I'm not against running, like everybody, exercise is important and good and whatever else, but that can't be the entire life. That's it's like I can't,
that's not a personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's not engaging with anything, or it's like they have fantasy football teams, and it's like there's nothing more boring than being told about someone else's fantasy football team. That's my personal idea of hell, I think, is like anytime I've had to listen to someone just be like, "Oh yeah, I had Peyton Manning and he threw for 3,000 yards, but then this other guy had this," and I'm like, I don't care. Like I just don't I don't care.
Well, being that I'm here in Southern California, I'm exposed to so many cultures. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I connect with this story, is because it has been very important to me to learn about other cultures. I've been to Europe 5 times. I know a little bit of German, a little bit of French, enough to be polite. And here in Southern California, we have, Cambodians, Koreans, as well as Europeans, of every stamp, and I really enjoy learning a little bit about them and learning a little, word or two, a little greeting, something. So that has become important to me, and it's just so fun. I think that everybody brings something interesting to the table, whether it's food, whether it's literally food, or some philosophy. But I also have been married to a German man, and I really enjoy being punctual, and I appreciate their punctuality. And I know that
Absolutely.
what I'm saying a lot of times pushes people away, and there's some things that divide people. But I try to kind of fold it in to my life, and bring it in and kind of borrow the good points of different cultures. I find that very enriching, and I find it just also connecting to the people around me, and not saying, I'm just going to listen or worry about my own culture and not listen to yours, because I find that like you say, isolating, being the same, being kind of homogenous, and if we're really going to have a melting pot, then we have to, of course, listen to each other and appreciate each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast. You're my first guest of Native American heritage. And, I think on one hand, it's like, I think it's important because, like, if you, for your groups or whatever, right, it's like Native Americans don't get nearly as much media representation as they should. And not that I'm CNN, but like, I think it's important that I just don't have white dudes or white women or, on my show, but also, I'm trying to definitely want to have a lot of women on my show, and people of other races, and other people and queer people, and all the people that aren't just like the cis straight white dudes that you generally see even still in media. That's like half of it, where I think it's like, philosophically I believe that's like socially important. The other half of it is, I don't think I've ever met someone who's from the Zuni Nation. And so it's like, it's exactly the thing of like, that's so cool. Tell me everything about the Zuni Nation. It's like, how many times I love this format, because it's like, it's almost giving myself an excuse where it's like, I can't just like, maybe I could, I don't know, maybe I could just like go to the Zuni website. I'd like to talk to someone from the Zuni Nation, but it's like, I'd love to hear about your experiences and everything, so.
There's only 10,000 of us, so we're a pretty small nation. When I meet people from Europe, I tell them it's kind of like each tribe is kind of like a city-state, like how they used to have in Europe, where it's like we all have our own rules, and we all have our own rituals, we all have our own religion, we all have our own dances, that kind of thing. For myself, Zuni is an actual language isolate. We're the only ones in the whole world that speak it.
Really?
Yeah, and
That's so cool.
It's so and it's not
I'm a
related
linguistics
to
nerd too. Sorry to interrupt, but like,
No.
you know, like Japanese, or I think Japanese and Korean, and there's Basque. There's not too many. That's so crazy.
Yeah, so because like Hopi, Apache, Navajo, some of them will have similar words or they'll be related and stuff. Like the Menominee I was mentioning earlier, that language group goes from the Great Lakes all the way to like Maine and Vermont, that kind of area up in the Northeast. And then, obviously West Coast. Here in California, there were so many small tribes that had their own language. Unfortunately, a lot of their languages were obliterated as we were conquered, quote unquote, conquered, whatever you want to say. So some of them can speak it, some of them cannot. So
illegally genocided and betrayed, and all the bad things that the white settlers did. Yeah,
I don't talk about that in my film. I do talk about racial prejudice. That's kind of the last part of my film, but I don't talk about genocide. While it is an important topic, it can't be the only topic. And I know that after a while, that can be wearing for people to keep hearing, okay, we're white people and we stink and we killed everybody. I don't want to alienate my audience that much. But definitely look into it. We do have a website. We do have a Zuni website. Winter solstice is really the start of the year for most Native American cultures. That's a huge, huge day in the calendar for us. There's usually going to be traditional dancing, getting together with the family, that kind of thing. Not Christmas, but just the start of the new year.
And is that, I was trying to do a little bit of research, is that when the Shalako, is it Shalako happens, or the Shalako? The series of dances at the winter solstice? I saw it was on the Wikipedia page about it. Am I saying that right? Shalako, Shalako?
It should be Shalako. It's a elongated thing. Like the word for dragonfly.
I mispronounce stuff in English, so I can't even, my
That's okay.
So, yeah.
One of the hardest words that we have is for dragonfly, and that's shumashkaloa. And you have to get that. You have to get that shumashkaloa.
Shumashkaloa.
And there's a little
That's cool.
nursery rhyme from it, and we're thanking the dragonfly as he goes about and pollinates and does his thing and kills other bugs, whatever he does.
Yeah.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So that takes place around the winter solstice.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah. And then there's other things. I mean, full moons, that kind of thing. There's always something going on.
Yeah. That's very cool. I'd love to see. That's the thing. Like, if I had Auntie Mame money, I would definitely be probably going around seeing and taking all these ceremonies. My friend who was Tewa, who I believe are also a Pueblo people. I believe so. I think, and I can't remember. I think this is like Pueblo and then Tewa. I can't remember the individual community that he's under, or nation that he's under. But the dance that he was talking about, he'd always invited me to it, and I was like, I'd love to go, and I never had the money to go. And then I kind of fell out of contact with him. But I should, it's always been like, I should have just scrounged and saved to go see it, because
there's there's powwows all over the country. And some of those performers may come to your town. You don't know. But powwows are all over. There's actually powwow.com. Shout out to powwow.com. And they have a whole list of powwows throughout the country. So most of them are, there's no entrance fee to walk into them. And if there's anything that they don't want filmed, they will usually make an announcement. Please don't film this next dance. Something like that. Or if, please don't record the prayer, that kind of thing. So they might say that, but most of the time you can, for your own use, film people dancing. And there's usually, like I said, competitions. And then those are so much fun. And there's a lot of those on other social media as well as here. There's a lot here on TikTok. There's a lot of natives that showcase the dancing here. So you can always see something.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I live near the Tellico Dam in East Tennessee. I mean, it's not like most people live near the Tellico Dam. I mean, it's a big dam, and it's like probably half hour from me. But it was the de facto capital of the Overhill Cherokee, I believe, from 1721. I'm looking on the Wikipedia till 1730, when it shifted to Great Tellico, which is also just in East Tennessee. It kind of follows along the ridge of the Smoky Mountains in like East Tennessee, southeastern Tennessee, and yeah, that's it. Unfortunately, we have a bit of bad history here, where a lot of it was flooded. I believe in 1980 to make the dam, and so there was like they had done a lot of excavation, but then like in building the dam, they basically flooded the submerged site of Tanasi, which is where Tennessee gets its name from, is from Tanasi, the old capital of it. And there's still controversy, because I think like they took a lot of the artifacts and stuff, as we've done historically, and I believe a lot of them are at University of Tennessee, and there's been like a battle between like trying to get some of them back, and like the Cherokee Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation wants them back, but then University of Tennessee is like, well, we had this agreement and blah 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 blah. But yeah, just basically all along the ridge here, there's a lot of stuff. I want to say, is it Sequoia?
Oh, okay.
Sequoia. Yeah, it was Sequoia's birthplace was one of the places that flooded. So they have a monument to Tanasi and the Sequoia birthplace and all that.
It's funny that you mentioned Cherokee Nation. For some reason, a lot of Caucasians want to claim being Cherokee. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's the only Native American tribe they remember. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we have a running joke about it. So during powwows, there would be a time when anybody can join in to the dancing, and that's the intertribal dance. And they say, okay. So some of the announcers, I've heard them say, "Okay, you say you're Cherokee, get on out here." So yeah. So and then we tease about the Comanche. It's gonna get wild. Here comes the Comanche. But yeah. I don't know why. But it's only been since the Native American movement of the 1960s that any Caucasians want to claim any Native American heritage. Then it became kind of cool, kind of exotic, kind of interesting. Before that, it was very much shunned, and you would never want to say that.
It was like
in fact,
half breed or something, right? It's like all the blood laws.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the beginning of Auntie Mame, she was talking about some weaving that she did. She said, "I got instructions from the descendant of Pocahontas." And so she's trying to also be inclusive with Native Americans as well. So and it was supposed to be this huge piece, and then it ended up being a bell pull, just a small thing that she wove because it was too. She doesn't have the attention span to do all that.
Yeah. I don't know why so many white people do that. It is definitely a thing. Like the amount of times I have heard it. And just because they're like, I have a great grandma who's Cherokee, and to your right, it is always Cherokee. I don't know why it's always Cherokee.
I don't either.
I think it is though. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's in the middle of the country. Maybe they found out about it first. I have no idea. But even I was on the show Rutherford Falls as an extra, and the girl who's the main character, Jenna, she was saying that as well on the show. With Seth Meyers, and he was saying, white people want to be Cherokee. She's like, yeah. And I was at home just laughing because I'm like, yeah, they do. They always want to be Cherokee.
Yeah. Even I think she was found to have like 1/1600th or something, but the Senator Elizabeth Warren, I believe, famously, she was claiming it.
And that all really depends on the tribe. For me, I have to be a 4th blood level to qualify for tribal membership. It really depends on how fast we are conquered, if you will. So each tribe has its own limits, and so if it can be really low, if depending on the tribe. So it's you can claim that. I don't know what her tribe is offhand, but it would have to be, you know, their bylaws, so to speak, to know
Yeah.
if you can claim 1/16th, 1/18th, even that small of a blood quantum.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite jokes, in even as far back as Blazing Saddles. There's the great line that Cleavon Little says, where so for the audience, if you haven't seen, Cleavon Little is a black guy, and he says, they're asking about something, and I think they're saying like, are you fully black or something? And he says, well, to tell a family secret, I am an eighth. My grandmother was an eighth Dutch or something, and it's sort of like reversing the like what what a lot of white people would say. It's like, oh, family secret is like we are 1/8 Cherokee or something.
Yeah.
You know, I just loved how they reversed in that movie of saying like, well, yeah, it is.
My grandmother was Dutch. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I think the only one that it's interesting when I grew up in because I grew up halfway in Western Massachusetts, so we did there's a lot of like state history there of like the early colonists and stuff. So the ones I always remember growing up, and you see a lot of the names were like Algonquin and Iroquois and like that. But even still up there was people who claimed to be Cherokee. Like even though that's like I don't think they were up
How
there.
funny.
Yeah, I think
they would have had to have moved, but yeah, it's been really interesting, you know, growing up, and finding out all these facts and different things. But yeah, I have no idea why everybody clings so hard to Cherokee.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. I would figure, you know, if it was out in the West, like. I know I'd be curious. Like, there's been sort of like a lot of history books, modern history, written about like the Apache, and I'd be curious if more people started claiming that, because now like there's more white people would be like, oh, these were like the great warriors or something, right? So it's
Yeah,
like,
I want to be one of them.
Yeah, I want to be one of them.
And what's interesting too is with people from South America and Mexico, in those countries, they don't want to claim being native, because they didn't have that movement like we had here in the States. So they like to promote, and not every single person, but quite a few of them, want to promote more of the European heritage. So it is actually the reverse. They want to say their Spanish is more like Spain. They want to say that they're more Spanish. And because of there was propaganda posters in the late 1800s, and so that it was a big influence. And it was, if you're fair skinned, or if you marry a fairer skinned person, your status is going to go up. But if you marry a darker skinned person, or if you're more dark yourself, then your status is going to go down. That's what the propaganda posters promoted. So that's actually been kind of ingrained in them quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
But on this side of the States, you want to be Native American.
yeah. You want to have that. You know, it's interesting. I don't know if we were talking about this on the pod or before, but we were talking about there hasn't been, one of the reasons I think you wanted to do it, there hasn't been a Native American Oscar winner.
Correct.
Yeah. In fact, in horribly, you know, again, not to get into too much bad stuff, but like, the Oscars, like probably the most famous Native American moment at the Oscars was famously when Marlon Brando sent the Native American lady to accept his Oscar, I believe, on behalf of The Godfather, and Hollywood booed her because he was trying to make, you know, Brando was trying to make a point, I think, about representation and the portrayal of Native Americans.
Yes, that was Sachin Littlefeather, who actually isn't Native American. She's actually Hispanic.
Is she not? Okay.
Yes, and she claimed during her lifetime to be Navajo, and she was wearing a buckskin dress, which is not their regalia.
Oh my goodness!
And
she was just like,
we call it pretendian.
I have no idea.
We call it pretendian. Yeah.
Like who's the famous the other Italian guy? I know his name from because there's a whole Sopranos episode about it. The Spiritacorti, the guy who's on the commercial, the crying Native American.
Yeah,
guy.
He was Italian. And also the other woman who claimed Native American heritage is Sainte Marie.
Buffy Sainte Marie?
Buffy Sainte Marie. Buffy Sainte Marie is Italian and British. But since she has darker skin and she has more of a predominant nose, she has claimed Native American heritage since the 60s. And she's not Native American. And she's won awards. She did win an Oscar for her lyrics for Love Lifts Us Where We Belong from the Officer and Gentleman, but she is not Native American. And in Canada, she has been stripped of some of her and given back some of her awards. So that's another pretendian. That's what we call them. So
Crazy.
yeah, so as a actual tribal member, I actually have my card. I know I know my family heritage. I would love to represent Native American women and be able to have a place on the stage. Yeah, it's definitely a goal.
Yeah, we were talking. I can't believe Lily Gladstone didn't win that. Didn't
Oh,
win
I
the
know.
Oscar. Yeah,
Yeah.
We're talking about I love that movie, and her performance was so good in that.
I was able to see, since I'm a SAG member, I was able to go to a screening of it here in LA, where she did a little Q&A at the end.
Oh, cool.
And she was saying that the dialogue between her and the sisters in that picnic scene, those women had made that scene up. They changed the dialogue because it wasn't feeling authentic. And so they went, to the director, Martin Scorsese, and he's like, yeah, go with it, run with it. And so they actually created that little tete-a-tete of little dialogue themselves.
Yeah. I was so glad that movie was made. It was really hard to watch. I mean, it's a very, very sad movie, and I can't imagine this is just even as an outsider, like someone who's watching it with Native American heritage, like to see the slow, like sort of planned like abuse and like planned like replacement and people stealing like the nation's oil rights and everything else. Brutal to watch. I was so glad that they made that, and that they also made it. It seemed like everyone really in the nation really loved Scorsese and was like very happy for like how much he included them in the development process, which it shouldn't be surprising, I guess, in 2022 or whenever the movie came out, but seemed like it still was. And that's actually something I wanted to ask you about Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead with your question.
Oh, I was going to ask you about, so be curious about sort of your, the dynamic between like making, like to your point, like your point about inclusivity, and like the difference of like, it would have felt different if she was not intending to be inclusive. Like she was making fun of the Indian dress at the end, which she's not. She's like appreciating it. I'd be curious your thoughts as a Native American about. I've wondered about like there's movies of the time that like in terms of contextualizing for people. I think there's a couple movies, Broken Arrow from 1950 and Drumbeat from 1954. I think, and a couple of these other movies. I think even The Searchers and some of these, Taza, Son of Cochise, I believe, is another one. They're strange movies to watch in some way because, like in Broken Arrow, the person who's playing the Native American leader is Jeff Chandler, and his daughter is played by Deborah Paget. Neither of those people have an ounce of Native American heritage at all, but they were intended to be very, like, they were known in Hollywood at least and considered like some of the first movies that portrayed Native Americans positively and like that were not sort of portraying them like just super negatively and super like, stereotypically. So I'd be curious, like as a person who both loves movies and loves old movies and as a Native American, like how do you feel about that? Like, and I guess like when you see someone like Jeff Chandler or some of these, like, they are like the movie itself is intended to be anti-racist or like pro-Native American, but their casting, unfortunately, due to the Hollywood at the time, is largely not Native American. Does that like affect the viewing experience for you at all? Or like, do you just say like, well, they were trying their, we shouldn't do it now, obviously, but like.
I think all of us minorities kind of have our time in the barrel. It's where we're not portrayed positively or we're portrayed by non-natives or, Caucasian people doing brown face, doing black face, these different type of things. It takes a while for the culture as whole to catch up. We've always been here. We're always got to be here. But it took a while for Caucasian Americans to catch up. and they didn't want to really see us. It was easier for them to see a Caucasian person like Natalie Wood in The Searchers, really tan, and playing like she had been with the natives.
Yeah.
And also, you got to remember the producers were all Caucasian. Some of them Jewish, but still, more European influence, Caucasian influence. So the look of the actors was going to be more Caucasian rather than a true Native American, because we have such broad, features, and I don't know. I think it would have been jarring for them. I don't think that that's a great reason to not have Native people, because we're great actors, actually. But with the premise of like The Searchers, it was that the Native American men were stealing all the white women, and that they had to keep going and searching for them. The History Channel has actually done a good documentary on that, and saying that it was that the Caucasian women really liked being with the Native American men, because and they were, to not put too fine a point on it, they're better lovers. And so, and they were, they kept running back to them. So that's why they had to keep trying to find them and bring them back home. So, which is, it's an odd bit of history, but like I say, I try to keep this clean and G-rated. But,
that's very self-consciously the plot of The Searchers, right? Is that
yes.
Is that John Wayne is so racist that he, rather than let his daughter live, he wants to go find her and kill her.
Yes.
Which is like, that's how racist he is. He'd rather kill her rather than see her just live happily with with a Native American tribe. Herself not being a Native American, but her having joined the tribe. He'd rather go out and kill them and kill everybody, including her, rather than have her do that, which is And it's such a sticky subject, because then you go fast forward to like Dances with Wolves, and that lets Caucasian Americans kind of off the hook. Like, oh, I would have been like him. I would have been the only non-racist person in the whole world, and I would have loved being with the Native Americans. Really? Because just you. But everybody else in the whole country was racist, but you would have been the non-racist person. So it kind of, the pendulum kind of swings back and forth, either super, tacky and cultural appropriation, or hey, we were all the good guy, we would all have been like that, and the genocide wouldn't have happened, so it's a tricky subject. So I think it's, at this juncture, more important to let like reservation dogs and stuff tell their own stories and do it from your own perspective. And even with, Killers of the Flower Moon, so much of that was done with Native American input and being able to bring it in from their side of the story. Same thing with Rutherford Falls, which was really funny, and I really enjoyed being on that set. And very proud of all the work that I did there. But yeah, it gets to the point where it's like, nah, you guys didn't get it quite right. Even if you had good intentions, even if you trying to be more positive, you still didn't walk in our shoes. So you still kind of are an outsider, even if you're trying to be kind. So it ends up being just better if we say our own stories. And that's the way I would, at least the way, personally, like, view something like Auntie Mame, is that like there are going to be like, some of the portrayals of like of the characters in there are going to be like fairly stereotypical, and there's stuff like you probably wouldn't, just as out of an abundance of caution, like you wouldn't necessarily have like the scene at the end with like the Indian dress or whatever, because it could be perceived by so many people as like being like, well, this is just like something I can put on. But in its time, it was intended, I think, just, I'm just as a history nerd, right? It's just like, as a history person, it's like the movies are like fascinating to see sort of like what counted as like very anti-racist in the time, or like what was sort of like would be shocking. Because even to the point about The Searchers, it's meant to be, and I think it's very effectively is a very anti-racist movie that shows like how rotten John Wayne's character is for wanting to kill his daughter. but then the chief in that movie, the Native American chief, Chief Scar, is played by a guy named Henry Brandon, who is not, was not. He was from Germany. He was not Native American at all. So even within that, it probably had a positive effect, I would imagine, on some large parts of society. But then, I think obviously making it today, you wouldn't have someone named Henry Brandon playing Chief Scar. No, you probably wouldn't have a character named Chief Scar, right?
Yeah,
it's probably not.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know about if John Wayne himself, because he was very racist in real life.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how much of an influence he may have had during the production, because he was the star and he was pretty much a heavy hitter by that time, because he really did not want Native Americans or African Americans to be in films unless they were playing a subservient role, a villain role. And that's why when Sachin Littlefeather, even though she's Native American, when she went to the Oscars, he was ready to punch her, and he really wanted her off the stage. And so I don't know if maybe that had any, weight to it, why a Caucasian man was playing a Native American man. Because sometimes there's inner workings.
At the time, yeah.
I don't know if that's part of the inner workings.
Yeah, I think they just didn't have any, they didn't have there wasn't a Native American actor who had sort of risen up to be a star, and so they just thought, well, let's just get a white guy. And I believe Henry Brandon as an actor was on his Wikipedia, it says he specialized in playing a wide diversity of ethnic roles as a German guy, which is
Okay.
So he probably was just the go-to. Yeah, and honestly, I think it's interesting. A lot of the stuff with John Wayne, I don't think he had a ton of influence probably on that movie because it was directed by John Ford, and I think he was a little scared of John Ford because John Ford was yeah, I'm scared of John Ford. I just watched The Grapes of Wrath last night, and what a movie. But I also think John Wayne was just kind of dumb. That's my other theory on him. He was just kind of a stupid. I mean, he was racist, so of course he's an idiot. But even past that, I don't think he understood sort of the political messaging behind a lot of his movies, because he's in a lot of movies that are very, woke. They're very anti-capitalist. They're very the movie, actually Fort Apache, was one of the John Ford one that I watched last week. Was one of the very first. It was, I think it might have been the first, maybe one of the first Westerns to portray Native Americans sympathetically, and positively. And he's in that. And of course, he himself in his personal life was very much a racist. So I kind of think they just told him what to do. And he just wasn't smart enough to figure out that I'm making a whole bunch of woke movies, because The Searchers is really woke. The Quiet Man's really woke. Fort Apache's really woke. All those are John Ford movies. I think John Ford was a very sort of politically radical director in a lot of his messaging, but I just don't think John Wayne understood it because he's stupid.
Well, did you ever see the Green Berets that he did?
No,
Wayne did?
I need to. Is that good?
It's actually it's so racist. It's actually a pro Vietnam War movie, which I didn't know that anybody made. And he was really a proponent in making that movie, and he really pushed to have that movie being made. The opening sequence shows a young soldier, American soldier, learning German, even though he's going to go to Vietnam, which he should be learning French. And it was just really weird. It's very, but yeah, it was really, I won't spoil it, do watch it. But it's very, very stereotypical and intentionally stereotypical. And there's a young Asian character, a little boy that comes on the screen. And every time he comes on the screen, they play a vaguely Chinese music behind it. It's so bad. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord, no, you didn't just do that. But yeah,
I've not seen that one.
If he had anything to do with it, which he did, then yeah, he's on brand.
And I think looking on the Wikipedia, he co-directed that, so that's probably why it's not very good, and probably why it's racist, is that he made the decisions as opposed to a John Ford. Yeah, he also is in a movie. I haven't seen it yet, but he played Genghis Khan in a movie, and it's I can't think of a worse casting choice than Genghis. First of all, any white guy playing Genghis Khan, but then like John Wayne as Genghis Khan, it's like, what are you like?
Yeah,
He's not. He doesn't have a lot of range even past his. You know.
No, well,
Yeah.
he was so tall. I mean, if you see some of his westerns, his feet are really up high because if he put his feet down on the horse, he would almost be touching the ground. He needed like a Clydesdale. He was so tall. So an average horse, he looked enormous on it. And they really have his feet kind of tucked up in the stirrups because, yeah, just very tall man. And they had to do the framing of the door jambs differently because of him. He was so incredibly tall and just threw off the scale of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame. I really do like, I try to ignore anything about his personal opinions because I really do. He is, I think, like when in those movies in The Searchers and Fort Apache and The Quiet Man, when he's well directed, I think he can be like a very engaging presence. And like, honestly, I almost think The Searchers works even better because of how racist he was in his personal life. No, I'm not excusing that, but like, it's critical of his character so much, you know, that he's like,
it's authentic.
Yeah.
It is authentic, and he does bring that authenticity to his roles.
Yeah, it's a fascinating because I think it's one of my all-time favorite movies. But it's kind of making the point that John Wayne as a character and as a racist kind of needed to die. It's like that because this famous shot of him walking away from the house at the end is like, there's no place for this in a civilized society. You know, it's like you can't be this person and be in society. You have to just kind of wander into the desert and die. So
that's so funny. What I find
I can't imagine he knew it, you know. So.
Yeah. What I find so fascinating too about that movie is that it's shot in Monument Valley in Utah, and yet it's supposed to be Texas. And Texas looks nothing like Monument Valley.
I was laughing at with that about I think it was the last maybe 2 episodes ago when a viewer or audience when you're listening to this I interviewed a lady who's originally from Utah, and we were laughing about the image of the West is just Monument Valley because of so many movies, and John Ford loved it, and honestly I love it. I don't think you're allowed to film there anymore. I think like
they've been doing a lot in Shiprock and other areas in New Mexico, so it's getting kind of close to that area. It's kind of northern New Mexico, and I don't know. Dark Winds might have a little bit in there in Monument Valley. Yeah. But yeah, it is sort of the go-to, you're west, here's these big rocks.
Yeah. Even in Looney Tunes. It looks like Monument Valley, you know, even in a cartoon.
It's funny that you bring that up because I am a SoCal girl, and when I went to visit my family in New Mexico, and I went through the Painted Desert, which is where Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner are supposed to be, I didn't realize that the earth would be that orange like the cartoon. I thought they just amped it up because it was a cartoon. And then when I saw it, I'm like, oh gosh, it really looks like, it all looked like the orange earth on the baseball field. You know? Yeah. And I'm like, oh. And my mom was like, what's the matter with you? And I was just cracking up because I just thought, well, that's just a cartoon. It's not really that color.
Yeah, it looks like that in East Tennessee, weirdly. East Tennessee is more orange than it because we have the clay dirt here. So, like, so much of it is like if you dig up the dirt, it looks just looks orange.
Well, they mess with you in cartoons, so I just didn't think that it was accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Roadrunner itself looks like an ostrich, and they're very tiny animals. They're like a foot off the ground.
Yeah.
And yet he's face to face with the coyote, who's like 5 foot tall.
I didn't know a Roadrunner was a real thing until like I was an adult. I just thought it was like some cartoon, like mystical bird or mythical bird or something like that.
Like the phoenix.
Yeah, exactly.
How funny.
So to pair this movie, so we watched Auntie Mame, and then to pair this movie, I wanted to watch just another Rosalind Russell movie. I first saw her in Bringing Up Baby, and not Bring Up Baby, His Girl Friday with Cary Grant, which I love, and so we watched Mourning Becomes Electra. I think I have past there. So how did you find this movie? Did you?
With Eugene O'Neill, he's always so abstract as a playwright, and him bringing the subject to the film is really esoteric, and so is he, and so it is a good match. It's. I don't know that it would be made today, or that an audience today would really appreciate it, because they didn't read classical Greek literature, because you really need to have that background. When I was in high school, I read a lot of the
classics
and the classic Greek literature and Greek plays. So having that background, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. But I don't know that this would be for an audience today, because it's so random. It's
a different style. So I was like, so I'd watched it first, and then I had watched Auntie Mame, and it was I was almost like, when I was like, oh goodness, what have I done? Because these are almost total opposites in terms of tone. Like Auntie Mame, happy, lighthearted comedy, very fun, very bubbly, a lot of fashion. And then Mourning Becomes Electra is like almost 3 hours of just depression, like tragedy and curses and hauntings and
and family intrigue and these betrayals and things. I think the only person that could probably have done this film more modern would have been maybe Woody Allen, because he has used Greek chorus in one of his films. But yeah, it's out there. I kind of like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was it caught my eye because I'd been reading. Haven't read a lot of Eugene O'Neill, maybe since like in college. I definitely did, because I was a theater major for like a day, and so I took a couple theater classes, and then I was a classics major, and then wasn't able to finish it because I had to transfer schools. But I did like 3 years of a classics major, so we read all this stuff, and so it's as you mentioned, it's based on the Oresteia, which is like a trilogy of 3 plays that I think I've seen one of them produced. But definitely, like, I think it's the only surviving trilogy that we might have from ancient Greek plays, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it was and so Eugene O'Neill, and I believe in 1931, wrote Mourning Becomes Electra, the play cycle, which is also 3 plays to sort of match the old one. And then the movie kind of condenses it, where you have sort of 3 acts, where it's like roughly 45 minutes to an hour for each play. And there's no way I can even begin to describe the plot offhand, but it's like, it's basically, there's a Civil War general named, which I love the name they did, because I think it's Ezra Manon. Instead of Agamemnon, it's Ezra Manon. They kind of kept the meter of it. He's coming back, but then his wife is married with, excuse me, his wife is in love with this other guy, but the other guy is also, the daughter's in love with this guy. And so then the daughter and the mom start battling, and the daughter also kind of has weird feelings for her dad. And the mom hates the dad, and the daughter's like, don't tell him that you're cheating on him. And then of course the mom does it, knowing that it'll kill him, and then he dies. And then the son comes back home, and he has a head wound because his dad encouraged him to go to war when he probably shouldn't go to war. And the son's kind of in love with the mom, and then he's upset at the new guy, and then he kills the new guy, and then he's haunted by that. And then the mom kills herself, and then the son kills himself, and then it basically ends with like the daughter just sort of like trapped in this gothic house. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think about it from memory.
What's
happy
funny,
play.
Yeah. What's funny is that I did drama all through high school, and I started directing then, and I directed one of a small 1-act play from Eugene O'Neill, And that was, sort of my introduction to him as a playwright. And he always does very, I don't want to say just eclectic, but just really minimalist in his style. And so a Greek play really fits well with marries well with his style, because he's really like that. And having this tragedy and having all these, offbeat, weird interpersonal relationships, that's so up his alley. It's so, I'm like, that's so him. He couldn't have written it better if he'd done it in the first place. But borrowing from that ancient Greek and that style was just very Art Nouveau at the time, very avant-garde. That's what I want to say, avant-garde. It was very avant-garde. And he was in that new vein of these artists and writers that were trying to do new things in the theater at the time. And so I can see why he would have picked this. It's very him.
Yeah, it's very him. And from what I remember of him. And it's also very, I thought this was the best in terms of like, there's been a lot of plays that sort of, or not plays, but films that have certainly like tried to do, like bring ancient Greek stuff into modern, like to a modern audience. And I'll be curious to the way, I can't imagine, like, I know Christopher Nolan's doing the the Odyssey. I love Christopher Nolan, but I'd be curious, like, how that's going to be. I can't imagine he'll get the feeling of a Greek play just because he's so different from it. But I will say this had the feeling of a Greek play, in terms of like the lamentation and the over the top, like the moaning that all the characters did, and like the feeling of haunting and cursing, and like you could kind of tell that this was just going to be the worst possible outcome. Like a minute into the story, everyone's cursed, everyone's going to die, everyone's going to kill each other. I think it got like it got that part of it, I think, better than almost anything I've ever seen in terms of like the feeling of a Greek play as I've seen Greek plays. Or read Greek plays of just like, man, this is not a great situation to be in.
Yeah, and I think, with Eugene O'Neill and, others of his ilk, they really wanted to break away from just the very American, you have to have a happy ending. You have to have, it has to be optimistic. That's a very American value. And, as immigrants and as people come into this country, they might not always feel that way. And it's kind of nice, quote unquote, to have it play this little depressing, because it kind of validates those feelings. And I think, I'm glad that we have it on film. I'm glad that we can still watch it, because sometimes, you do kind of want to feel a little blue. Maybe you want to have a, dark chocolate and a little glass of wine and watch a little bit of, something Eugene O'Neill play. And, I think that's still, valid. It doesn't always have to be so lighthearted and so optimistic and so Americana. It is nice to have that outlier, the one person that's going to say, yeah, you know what? But I'm going to do something completely different.
Absolutely. I think both of these movies, to your point that you made earlier, probably would be hard to make now. Like, I don't know that anyone, if you went to a Hollywood person and say, I'm going to adapt a Eugene O'Neill play, and it's going to be, the version I watched on the DVD was 159 minutes. It's almost like 3 hours. And it looks like it performed poor, like even in its time when reading the Wikipedia, it performed poorly at the box office and was cut to 105 minutes after it performed poorly. So they cut out almost a third of it. But I think both this and Auntie Mame both of these feel like movies that like I don't think could be made anymore. Like I don't know that with Auntie Mame, not that they shouldn't, because they're both, I think I really enjoyed both of them, but both of them seem like just movies very much from like a time past, if that makes sense, I think. Yeah.
And definitely both of them were from the theater. They were both,
that's a great point,
they were both theaters, productions that were then translated into film. And there was that whole push and pull at the time. Theater people looked down on Hollywood. Hollywood looked down on theater people, and they were trying to marry the two in a way by getting these productions into film and making them films and kind of validating both. Sometimes it worked, like with Auntie Mame, and then sometimes it didn't, like with the Mourning with Electra, because it didn't perform that well. And so it was really meant for theater audiences. And if you remember too, in that time period, people talked about going to the movies as going to the theater. They would call them theaters instead of like, multiplexes or, cinema. They would call it still going to theater, and they would still dress up like they were going to a play when they went to the movie house. And so it was really more of that old school feel, and then kind of still wanting to translate into film and be more modern. And so the transition can be kind of clunky. Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I will say, I think in both of these, probably, like the dialogue in both of them, I thought is quite good. And yeah, you can definitely, like, that's something I feel like, because there's not nearly as much of a theater scene in America anymore, really. Like, there's, my brother's a huge theater person, and he always says, like, you can really, like, there's two cities, I think, like New York and Chicago, that have like sort of a thriving like theater scene where there's like many professional actors. Like in most other cities, like you might have like a company and you might have people doing it like maybe full time, maybe there's one theater, maybe it's pretty limited, like maybe there's festivals, but like in terms of like a theater scene like it was maybe 80 years ago, like that produced Auntie Mame or Eugene O'Neill plays, really only two cities. And that's one thing I definitely noticed in a lot of older movies, is that there's just so much more of a theatricality to them that you don't find in modern movies, I think. That's definitely like a connection, I think, between these two. Yeah, and I mean, in some films, in some 50s films, like I think it was How to Marry a Millionaire, they actually opened the curtains in the movie, in the actual film. They would open the curtains in the movie house as well, but in the film they put that on because it was like a little play. You're watching a little play, and so and they would have the orchestra do a little bit of intro before they started the movie, like you would at a play or a little musical, something like that. So there was still that kind of hearkening back to the theater experiencing, going to see an actual play, and so they really wanted to translate that, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah. So are these the types of movies like that you typically watch, but like if you're if it's Friday night or Saturday night, like are you going back and watching like Auntie Mame or Auntie Mame? Like, are you typically looking for like a comedy, or do you like, how often do you dig into the stuff like the Eugene O'Neills? You said like, or it has to be a dark chocolate and wine night, I think, as you said.
I actually do them according to season because of the costuming that they wear. Okay. So like Rear Window. Rear Window,
yeah.
I watch that in the summer because it's in the summer.
Oh, okay.
It's hot.
Yeah.
And he's in New York and it's stifling.
That's right.
So Auntie Mame, I would typically watch in the fall because she's got a lot of heavy clothing on. Same thing with Age of Innocence, because they got all that Edwardian clothing, and it's really, I can't watch that in the summer because they're just so hot. They just look wool and laces and all this stuff. And other films like a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's I will watch in the summer because it kind of lends itself to that, because of the clothing, like To Catch a Thief. Yeah. And I like I've mentioned before, I like to learn from other cultures, and I have learned so much from characters like Auntie Mame. Her esprit de corps, her, reveling in people's differences rather than having it push away from her, embracing those things. So yeah, those are the kind of things I do enjoy. I like comedies as well, as I also grew up as a bit of a goth girl myself, so I do like the Eugene O'Neill type of dark stories as well. So I do both. I don't typically watch like sports movies. Like those are not the kind of films I watch, except for Chariots of Fire, which is like the most British film ever, and like 3 cast members with all the name Nigel. But but that's like a summer film, so I kind of watch things in season.
Yeah, interesting. That's cool. So it's summer now. What are your summer picks? So you said Rear Window. Like, what are there ones that you come back to? My brother's kind of like that because he gets excited for the fall. I think only for the fall, because the fall's just generally when we just start to watch a bunch of John Carpenter. So we'll watch like The Thing and The Fog, and like it's kind of horror based, but just like they just feel like fall movies, I think.
Yeah. The thing that I've been going to lately has been more period films, even though that's exactly the opposite of what I just said. But something like a Howard's End, because there are some summer scenes to that, and I do like period dramas. I do like Edwardian clothing, and I do like the fashion, and so and then also the fact that the portrayals of romance and intimacy is very mellow and just very insinuated rather than, in your face. And, people generally keep their clothes on. And so, but it's the subtlety in the actors' performances. I really liked, Helen Bonham Carter and her gentleness in her portrayal of these characters, where I've seen other people portray the same character and it was really over the top. So a lot of really good performances is what I'll keep going back to. Like Kate Blanchett in Ms. America, that series that she did for FX about the feminist movement in the late 60s and early 70s. Her performance is like creamy. She has such a good villainess, and she plays it like she really means it, but she doesn't, and it's just such a wonderful portrayal. Yeah, I go back to things like that again and again.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. That's I should watch that. I like Kate Blanchett.
And she plays an American, so.
Oh.
So she has a good American kind of Midwest little bit accent.
Very cool. Do you you've been talking a lot about like fashion and costumes. Like, has that always been a big part of your sort of movie watching?
Yes.
Like.
Yes, that came from my grandmother, because my grandmother always sat down with me and we watched old movies, and then we would look at the clothes and look at what they were wearing, like the women or something like that. It was so cute with all the little kind of Schiaparelli clothing.
I need to see that. People have been yelling at me to watch that one for.
Oh my gosh, it's so cute. It's also a play. That was also a play that was done into a movie. And they have a little fashion show during the movie. Everything is black and white except for the fashion show. So cute. And Rosalind Russell's in that one as well. And it's just such a joy to watch. And it's all about men, but you never see any men in it. It's all women talking about their husbands and, who their husbands cheating on them with or whatever and stuff. So, and Joan Crawford's in that one too. And she plays the bad. She plays the bad girl. She's the homewrecker. She's the homewrecker.
Seems like right up her alley.
Yeah. So my grandmother and I would watch a lot of films, old films, and I had a book called They Had Faces Then, and it was about old film stars from the 20s and 30s, and I think going in a little bit into the 40s. I lent it to my grandmother, and I never got it back because it was all the actors and actresses that she grew up with watching and stuff. So that was kind of a nice cross-generational, moment where we could appreciate fashion and appreciate these stories, even though, we had been born, in such different eras.
So is she the one that you ended up watching a lot of movies with, like just growing up and all that?
Yeah.
Was she like a big fan of older movies? And
yes.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. It was before Turner Movie Classics, was a thing, but usually on Saturday afternoons in Pacific Coast time, they would have older movies, black and white movies and stuff. So we would watch them together. And,
That's
you
cool.
know, yeah, just have a little bit of Mexican sweetbreads. And I
that
I wasn't
sounds
I wasn't allowed to have coffee, but I had hot cocoa and just, you know, really, you know, kind of drink it all in. And I must have been watching an older film like that because I wanted, as a little child, I was probably like 7, and I wanted a negligee with a train. And I don't know where I saw that. That must have been a film. That's not clothing that they make for children. They don't make that style for children.
Sure.
But I must have been watching some old film where the character had that. And I was like, oh, I want that. You know?
Yeah,
And like I said,
absolutely.
Auntie Mame influenced my fashion choices even as an adult. So a lot of these things, I copied, and I'm like, oh, I want that style. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's. I was thinking. I forgot to ask this before, but I'd be curious. Like, and I don't think she was ever nominated, probably because of racism. But I don't think she was ever nominated for an Oscar. But one person that I've been really happy to showcase. She was the first Latin American actress nominated for an Oscar. So Katie Jurado from the 50s. I had never watched any Katie Jurado movies growing up, but she's in High Noon, and she's in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and she's in a couple of these other ones. I would be curious how much, I would imagine, you know, being Latin American, how much like indigenous American blood that she has, or Native Mexican blood. I don't know what the right term is. It would be Native Mexican. Is that the right term? Do you know, for like
Just Mexican.
or indigenous?
Because I mean, Mexicans really are part indigenous and part
Right.
European. There are certain tribes in Mexico that are completely devoid of European blood, and those ones they live and they have a different language than Spanish. Spanish is a second language to them. I don't remember their tribal names right now. I'm so sorry, but they do. In the movie, that won the Academy Award a few years ago, Roma. Roma, that woman was actually indigenous. She was not Mexican, and so she was from a tribe out in the hills. And Spanish would have been her second language, and she was the maid into that family in the film. And that was her. And the reason why the director, when he accepted his Oscar, said, "I can't believe I made a film with an indigenous woman," is because they're looked down upon in Mexico.
Yeah, Alfonso
so,
Cuarón. I love that. Him
and
as a
so
director.
And so it was based on a woman he knew, somebody who was his maid and very kind when he was growing up in Mexico City. But he probably, and his family would probably think of themselves more as Spaniards and more as European.
Yeah, I was curious when you said that about like if she because to your point about like in Mexico, it's like they it's like you, as opposed to America where it's like, oh yeah, I'm an 8th Cherokee or something. Like in Mexico, they'd want to say, well, I'm only European or something. So I'd be curious, like Katie Jurado in light of that, if she, I guess like how much, as you said, she's Mexican, so the combination of indigenous and Latin American surely probably might be sort of like ethnically the closest thing to a Native American, I think, woman. And she didn't win. I think she just got nominated. But I thought that was, I was curious if you sort of grew up watching her, given that so do you have Mexican heritage as well? I think you might have mentioned off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Mexican characters we listened to or watched were mostly comedians, and that kind of thing. And even if the characterizations were stereotypical, we still laughed at it and we still had a good time with it. The Cisco Kid is something that my grandma and I both watched together. And the characters are named Pancho and Francisco, which is actually the same name. It's like Robin, Bob, and Bob. Okay, so you say Robert and Bob, it's the exact same thing in Spanish. And they never acknowledged it. And it drove Hispanics up the wall because they would never say, we have the same name. It wasn't until the early 1990s when Cheech Marin and they did the Cisco Kid, and he was also in Sons of Anarchy. Anyway, they reprised that role. When Cheech Marin, the other Hispanic actor, reprised the role of the Cisco Kid, they actually acknowledged, hey, we have the same name. And it only took 50 years.
Yeah. Jimmy Smits?
Yes. Okay, so Jimmy Smits and Cheech Marin reprised the role of the Cisco Kid, and they're the ones that finally acknowledged that they had the same name. Gotcha. And like I said, it only took 50 years.
Yeah. You know, that happened in the South, and for whatever reason, I can't remember if I told this story in the pod, like my me and my buddy always laugh because he grew up on a road with two different people. Whenever I explain, like, you know, it's like the county I'm from, I always use this as an anecdote because it just describes, like, just what kind of people I grew up around. But, like, there were two different people on his road named Robert Bobby. Two separate people whose, like, legal name. It's like Robert and Bobby, that's the same name. But there was a Robert Bobby 1 and a Robert Bobby 2. Both, like, Bobby was their legal middle name. I also went to school with two kids, like, one of them's name was... like their dad's name was Ronald something, and one of them was named Ronald John, and the other one was named like Ronnie Tyler, and like so they went by John and Tyler, and I was like, well, you guys have the same first name, and he would argue with me. He's like, no, my brother's name is Ronnie, mine's Ronald. I'm like, but Ronnie's just short for Ronald. He's like, no, that's a totally different name. I'm like, it's not a different name.
It's not.
Yeah, it's the same name.
It's so funny. Yeah, we watched we watched more comedies. There was a few other, you know, early Hispanic actresses in the 40s and 50s, but we didn't really watch them because all of their roles made it seem like they were dangerous to be around, dangerous to date. And it was all this kind of foreboding, like, don't date the Mexican girl, don't date the spicy girl. And so we didn't really care for those films. So we kind of shied away from them. But we did watch a lot of comedies. And again, yeah, they are very stereotypical. And, you know, things like that. You know, in the Cisco Kid, the one heavier set guy was always kind of lazy and a drunk. And that wasn't cool. That wasn't great. But from there, you know, you can still see this arc of more acceptance, and you can see better roles, and you can see where it started from and where we are now. So it's a lot better. And with like Flaming Hot, which was such a cute film, and I think Eva Longoria was the director on that one, and she used a track called La Raza from artist Kid Frost, and hardly anybody uses that track. It's a really deep track, and it's here from SoCal. And I was so impressed that she included that in the score there and in the musical choices there. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't seen that one. I need to see that still.
Oh, it's so
I'm definitely I'll check out the Cisco Kid too. We've been watching some old television at my house, so the Cisco Kid sounds fun. I'd love to watch that. There was a great one of the early. It's actually another early. I think it's called Ride the Pink Horse. Is another one that I watched last year that I really quite liked. That it's on the borderline because it's written directed by. It got a Criterion release. It's written directed by Robert Montgomery. But the sidekick in that, Thomas Gomez, was he was I don't think he was Mexican. I think he was like his parents were from Spain, I believe, or I want to say. But he got nominated for it, and he's playing a Mexican fella who it's a great film noir, but it kind of tackles with like there's actually a girl character in that movie who should have been nominated for the actor that I think her name is, I can't remember if she's Carla or Maria in the movie, or Pila, but she should have been nominated because it's a great little movie that and one of the main characters is like this little girl who's sort of helping the two sort of adults, like trying to escape like the criminals that are after them, and she's got like this really sweet storyline that I really quite liked. And
Well,
I was really
since
happy
there
to.
is, a big variety in skin tone and things like that. I mean, like Antonio Banderas is a Spaniard. He's from Spain,
Hmm.
but he plays in a lot of Latin roles because he can get
One of my
a little
favorite movies as
tan.
a kid, Zorro,
Yeah,
which
and
has
he,
I found out later has no Mexicans in it. It's funny being a Mexican story, as Antonio Banderas is at least Spanish, but then Anthony Hopkins and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I thought for
they're
years Catherine
British. Yeah.
Zeta-Jones was Latina, but I think they're both I think they're both Welsh
No,
British.
she's British. Yeah, and
Yeah.
she can her natural voice is very British, and she has a really beautiful accent. But yeah, but because she's curvy and with the nice long black hair, she can pass for Latina. So I mean, I know, and I don't begrudge her that. She's a fabulous actress. It's nice to see other actresses like well, even Penelope Cruz is Spanish. She's not Hispanic. She's not from Latin America.
Yeah.
But
I think that one made slightly more sense because I think in Zorro she's like, it's very much about like the local Mexican, like integrated sort of Mexican community versus like the Spanish overlords or whatever. And so like at least all three of them are European. Like they look European white in the way like someone who has never sort of intermarried with like an indigenous American probably would, I think. So it made maybe a slightly more, but still I don't think if you're making a Zorro movie, probably should get Mexican. Probably should get Mexican
yeah.
actors to
Besides
make,
the background, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I say, because I've grown up, not being prejudiced. It doesn't bother me. But I mean, that's just myself. Other people, it may really irritate, and they may be like, "Why didn't they have?" Or like Matt Damon in The Great Wall, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah. Well, cool. So in terms of like like recommendations for these movies, I always like to end the show on some recommendations. So I was thinking actually I wasn't sure after watching Auntie Mame like what I would do recommendations. Obviously anything with Rosalind Russell, she seems to be great in everything. So His Girl Friday would be one, is like one of the classic romantic comedies, so well written, such snappy dialogue. But I was also thinking for Auntie Mame in terms of like content, a couple of the movies I think you brought up Trading Places because it's referenced in there. So I think like another movie about sort of like rich versus poor, like in kind of like themes of wealth and all that, I think would be a good one. Caddyshack and Back to School. She kind of reminded me of a Rodney Dangerfield type character, and I love Rodney Dangerfield. But I kind of would have loved to see Auntie Mame. Not that I didn't like the movie at all, but I would have almost loved to. I would have loved to see a remake with Rodney Dangerfield in the Auntie Mame role, like if it was Uncle Mame or something like that, where he's doing the same thing. That could have been a lot of fun.
Well, the British sitcom Absolutely Fabulous, everybody calls it AbFab, is based on the dynamic of Auntie Mame and her friend Vera. And so that's a more
cool.
modern take of it. And but she's kind of a hippie mom, and then she's always kind of getting drunk, and the daughter's kind of putting her to bed and has to deal with her out of control mom. So that's pretty funny. That one, and that ended up being such a successful series. They made a movie with it too. I think it was 2012 or something. They finally did the movie. But on the Eugene O'Neill thing, I think the other kind of maybe slightly not totally depressing, but a little bit more sadder take, The Picnic, the movie The Picnic, which is also was originally a play and became a film. And that one's very Americana and really like Midwesty and kind of a little slice of life for that time period. I think it was based in the 40s, but it was made in the 50s. But that one's really interesting too. That's a good recommendation. And it's summertime, and they're out in the summer, so it can also be a seasonal themed movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That sounds great. I will say, since you brought that up, it reminded me, the other two probably really good play adaptations, since we talked about theater, and both of these were theatrical ones. I just watched over the weekend Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. That movie destroyed me. I couldn't believe how good that was. That's like, I don't think I'll ever be able to watch another production of it after seeing those two.
if last what do you call it, summer theme movie, and we're talking about Elizabeth Taylor, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I mean,
Yeah.
she was smoking hot in that one. I mean, just gorgeous.
It's a blind spot for me. I need to see that, so thanks for reminding me.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
no, that one's so good, and it's a really good, interesting look at family politics. I mean, that's, the basis, some of that. And with Tennessee Williams, he always does have a character that's homosexual and kind of closeted, and that's Newman's character and stuff. And it's not spoiler alert, but just watch for it. You'll see it. You'll understand.
That's the other movie along the same lines. Probably the other like really great adaptation that I watched in the last year was Suddenly Last Summer, which is Tennessee Williams and also Elizabeth Taylor. Also has some of the weird, very weird family dynamics.
Yes.
In Katharine Hepburn and Monty Cliff. I love that movie so much. That's a real shocking movie.
Katharine Hepburn in that film, oh my goodness, she just goes off the deep end, and you're just, whoa, okay.
Her
we can talk
entrance,
about
wouldn't you want to have that in your house, like where she enters on like the elevator?
Yes, such the grand dame, and it's over the top, but not really. I mean, it's on target for her character, but her character is over the top.
Yeah,
fabulous.
Such great set design in that movie too, with all the skeletons, and it's in the great another great summer movie. It's in New Orleans, and everything's like sweating and wilting, and she's got this macabre garden. And the other two things I would say for for the Mourning Becomes Electra, because of the Greek stuff, is probably the other best adaptation I think I've seen of one. It's been years since I've seen this, but since I just did a video on Pasolini, but the Pier Paolo Pasolini Medea that he did is really, really good from what I remember. It's been years since I've seen it, but I remember loving it, and I love Pasolini. But the other one, a more modern sort of film noir, I always think the movie The Night in the City. A lot of great film noirs, or film gris, or film gris, I can't remember the actual term, but like the very economically oriented film noirs always remind me of very Greek stuff. Just people feel cursed and like they can't escape their surroundings. So honestly, any of that era. And since I actually, one thing I do want to make sure I don't go through the whole episode and without shouting out, because I think it's every actor in Mourning Becomes Electra I think is really good, but specifically, I hope I say the name right, Katina Pixinu, the mother in the movie, it's the first thing I've seen her, and I think she was only in a handful of movies, but she was one of the founding members of the National Theatre of Greece, and she has a lot of experience playing classically Greek characters, so her acting style in this movie is like so Greek that I don't know how you felt about it. She is like so powerful and like gut-wrenching to watch, and she's really going crazy in this movie. in an entertaining way.
That speaks to the fact that it's so theater. It's so from the theater,
Yeah.
and you can really pull it off like that, and have that strong of a performance because it's so theater based. And she hits it out of the park.
Yeah. Her face is like so. It looks like she's wearing a mask, and it's just her face. It's just like it's so. What she does with it, and just like with her eyes, and just like with the way she contorts it, very much. Yeah, it's like it's so neat to see that history, because it's theater, but to your, the point, it's like theater going back like 2,500 years or something, right? Like with with her performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. She won an Oscar for Whom the Bell Tolls, which I have not seen, so I'm definitely gonna try and check that out. The Hemingway novel adaptation. Well, cool. Well, Monica, this has been so much fun. This has been love talking movies. Thank you for coming on and like explaining your documentary and teaching me about the Zuni and everything else. And this is super cool.
Well, thank you so much for having me. That's kind of our role as an auntie, is we're supposed to gain the knowledge, gain the wisdom, and then we're supposed to dispense it to the next generation and help the next generation. So that's very much an auntie thing of me.
I feel educated, and you said it was a matrilineal cultural, right? So it's like, what better expert to have?
Oh, thank you. You're so dear.
Yeah. That's cool, and I would love to. Is there like if there's like a time to go and see like the powwow or anything, like you know, I would absolutely love to.
Yeah, summer seasons, powwows kick off because it's warm, you can dance, it's a great time. Again, powwows.com, they can show you in every state of the union where there's a powwow.
Awesome. I definitely want to go to I've driven through New Mexico and in Arizona once, I think. So I would love to go back because it's so beautiful out there too.
It is.
Every time I see a Breaking Bad clip, I'm like, I need to go back. Like, 'cause, you know, and that's just Albuquerque, right?
Yeah. My family's outside of Gallup, New Mexico, so we're more northern New Mexico.
That's cool. I'd love to go there.
Yeah.
So powwows.com, and yeah, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. And thank you for introducing me to Auntie Mame.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks everyone. Have a good day.